right, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Another Turnover, the basketball podcast where a basketball fan with no basketball credibility gives his opinions on what's going on in the NBA, opinions that nobody asked for. As always, I'm your host, Mr. Chris Aaron Murphy, a.k.a. Ron, and ladies and gentlemen, we got a very special episode of Another Turnover today. So we won't be talking NBA per usual, but we'll be talking NCAA. It is March, so the madness is here. So I've got three very special guests on the show today that I am super grateful for all y'all being on. I've got Mr. Joel Wallace, high school friend. Thank you, sir, being on the show.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Got Mr. Ian Sadler here, the statistician extraordinaire.
Thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. And then who you've, everybody's familiar with before from a previous episode, Mr. Cameron Walker. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. Let the madness begin, baby.
Absolutely. So if you're listening to this, I mean, you're probably listening to this on Thursday. So the official tournament games start tonight, and I, for one, am super excited. Hopefully no one from work is listening to this, but I will have the games on probably while I'm working. So, but I mean, everybody's doing it around the country, so it's fine.
Everybody's going to have the games on.
Yeah, as long as the work gets done, it's good, right? But we're going to get into about 4 different topics here tonight. So we're going to kind of go through, some of our most anticipated matchups of the first weekend. So that's either round of 64 or round of 32. We're going to talk about some of the upsets to look out for as well. We'll, talk about who we think is going to be the best potential player or have the breakout tournament. And then we'll go with our finale with our Final Four predictions and championship predictions. So, gentlemen, you all ready?
Yes, sir.
Let's do it.
Awesome, let's do it. So I'll go first here. So topic number 1, most anticipated matchups of the first weekend. So when I was putting, my bracket together and whatnot, and I'm going to be honest, I'm going to be real, I have no confidence for my bracket this year whatsoever. Like, I think it is going to be completely terrible. But I do have, some most anticipated matchups. I think Joel and I were talking about this just a couple days ago when I was, putting the show together. This Duke-Oral Roberts matchup, I was going back and forth with it because obviously, I mean, I've got the Duke polo on today. I am a Duke fan, been a Duke fan for a very long time. I think that's going to be a pretty good one. I think it's going to be a pretty good game. I mean, a 17-game win streak for Oral Roberts, coming into the tournament. They got their senior guard, Max. I can't pronounce his last name, but I remember his run in the 2021 NCAA tournament, and this brother can ball. So he's averaging, I think I wrote down, he's averaging 22 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists. But at the same time, Duke finished the year pretty strong. I was a bit concerned for them about midway through the season. They finished the year pretty strong, obviously winning the ACC tournament. And the NCAA tournament really is all about who has the momentum going in. Part of the reason why I think these teams that do these play-in games have a leg up on the teams that they play in that first round because it's like, all right, they got those first game jitters out, and that's why they typically do fairly well. But whoever has the momentum going in is usually, who does well. But that's one matchup that I have. I think I'm picking Duke. I mean, I know this is probably more heart over head, because I really wanted to pick Oral Roberts in this first round, but I'm like, I can't. I just can't. I can't pick against Duke for this one. So I'm picking Duke to win that one. But the second game I've got that in the round of 32. If they both make it, Purdue and Memphis. I've actually got Memphis winning that game. I think Memphis can knock off Purdue based off the style of play. They play really fast. They cause a lot of turnovers. And Dak Edey in Purdue, he's great. I've watched a few games where he's played in, and I really like his game. But I think it could be a matchup nightmare for Purdue potentially in that round of 32. So those are my 2: Duke and Oral Roberts, Purdue and Memphis. So Ian, we'll go to you first. Who you got for most anticipated matchups?
Yeah. I just want to add, I also had Purdue and Memphis, and I think you're exactly right. Like the pressure from Memphis can really cause problems for Purdue, and I think the best way to guard Zach Edey is just to make sure the guards can't get him the ball. Because there's nothing you can do with that dude in the post. So just make sure he can't get the ball. So I think you covered that one. Another one I had, it's sort of a little out there. I don't think a lot of people have their eyes out for this one. It's Missouri and Utah State. So what I got here is this is the most March Madness of March Madness games. These teams are great offensively and horrible defensively. This is going to get into the high 80s. I think we've got buzzer beater potential here. Missouri, they can't guard anybody. They're traffic cones. So their whole plan on defense is just to force as many turnovers as they can and get runouts. So we're going to be going up and down the floor. Utah State's going to be shooting a lot of threes. That's their plan. So, I mean, I think that game's going to be a ton of fun. Tomorrow afternoon, you're at work. Throw that one on, and you're going to see a lot of points on the board. But this other one, just from the pure basketball standpoint that I got, if they make it to the second round, I got Texas A&M in a potential 2-7 matchup. Texas A&M, they started the year slowly. They came out poorly in the non-conference, but then when you look at their numbers in the conference season, they sort of play like a Houston, who's one of the favorites in the tournament. They've got an efficient offense, but it's not because of their shooting. They can't shoot from anywhere. They're poor from three. They're poor from the mid-range. They're poor at the rim, but they track down boards. They're in the 98th percentile in offensive rebound percentage, and their percentage shooting after they get an offensive rebound is close to 60%. So that's where they're generating their offense, is on the boards and at the free throw line. And when you look at Texas, they're susceptible to offensive rebounding, and they foul a lot. So I think that's going to be the key to the game, is whether Texas can keep A&M off the boards and away from the free throw line. And if they can do that, I don't think A&M's got enough first shot offense for them to keep up. So that's one that I'm looking out for, just from like an X's and O's standpoint. I think that's going to be a really interesting chess match. So those are my two.
I like that. I like that a lot. I mean, like I mentioned previously before the show started, we started recording, I should say, my fiance went to A&M, so I have to have them winning that first round matchup. But against Texas, I'm like, I don't know. I want to pick them against Texas, but I don't know. I didn't. I'll just be honest. I didn't pick them to beat Texas. So, all right, Joel, we'll go to you. What do you got for us?
Yeah, I have. I've got a couple. Honestly, all three of mine were some SEC versus Big Ten, and there's going to be some great games on in the first and second round. And I think a lot of that has to do with you have a lot of Power 5 versus Power 5, and you've got a lot of 2 seeds that are going to have to go up against some Power 5 opponents pretty early. I mean, shoot, even look at Kansas. They're going to have to go against Arkansas in the second round or Illinois in the second round. Like, that's not easy for anybody. But I'm going to focus on a couple. I really like the Texas A&M versus Penn State game. It's a very, very intriguing matchup right off the rip. Both teams had a very terrible beginning and middle of the season. They almost looked like they were going to be going to the NIT. And then all of a sudden they come in hot and they just play extremely well. Penn State kind of came out of nowhere. They've got a potential breakout star in Jalen Pickett. He may become a tournament guy that just comes alive and carries his team. So I like that. I always like a player that can come in and just kind of make an impact immediately. You look at Penn State, and they really turned a new leaf. And, they were on a 5-game win streak before losing in the Big Ten tournament. And then, they lost to Purdue early in the year by 20, and then they meet them in the Big Ten championship and they lose by 2. So this is not the Penn State team that everybody thinks that they know. It's not a traditional Penn State team. A couple of years ago, they were at the bottom of the Big Ten, and now they're coming in a very good and, aggressive Big Ten group. So, I mean, then you look at their big wins throughout the year. They beat Indiana twice. They beat Illinois 3 times. They beat Northwestern twice. They beat Maryland. Like, they have NCAA tournament wins on their resume that really, really stand out. So you look at them, but then you look on the other side of it, and you got Texas A&M, another very roller coaster type team. And honestly, the selection committee kind of penalized them for an easy non-conference schedule. And that's the reason why they're at a 9. I mean, their record is, they're 25-9, 15-3 in the SEC. You think that would scream a top 4 seed or top 5 or 6 at the very least, but because their non-conference was so slim and not intriguing at all, they get a 9 seed. And so now they've beat a number 2 Alabama to end the regular season, but then they kind of have an easier SEC championship game road, and they beat Arkansas. That's kind of up and down too. Then Vandy fortunately beats Kentucky, so they don't have to go against them. And then they go to Alabama and they lose by 20, a team that they just beat, almost a week prior. So they're very up and down. And so you look at that, Penn State coming in hot, Texas A&M being a roller coaster, but filled with talent and potential there. that's going to be a great game. And honestly, I think Penn State may take it away from Texas A&M, and may surprise a lot of people, because I think a lot of people just think Penn State and think bad basketball, but that's just not the case with this team. And then the second one, I'll take the more intriguing of the two for the three that I had, but Iowa and Auburn. I love the coaching matchup in this game so much. You've got an intense Bruce Pearl that's going to get after it with the crowd, with his guys, with the officials. He's going to get ejected, and then you got Cranky McCaffrey. That's just mean mugging everybody out the wazoo. So, but you can say what you want about their antics. They're phenomenal basketball coaches, and Iowa's playing really well. They can score the ball. In a tough Big Ten league. They've got Chris Murray that's 6'8" and 6'8" and 20 points per game, 8 rebounds per game. Like, you've got a star that can come out and break out. But they haven't been great. Like, Iowa has not been great at really any point of the season. They lose to Nebraska, which is, Nebraska turned on a new leaf at the end of the year, but they still weren't a great basketball team. At the end of the day, it's can they guard it, or can they outscore their opponents? And honestly, they've shown through the year that they can, but also that they can't. Auburn's kind of the same way. They got a great backcourt with Wendell Green and KD Johnson. Those are two, really talented guards that are going to come on the floor. They've got quality wins against Northwestern, Arkansas, and Missouri. So you got some NCAA tournament teams in there. But not a strong non-conference schedule. They haven't been pushed, especially outside the league. And neither of them are coming in with any momentum. Iowa loses early. Auburn loses early. There's no momentum there for either of them. Is it going to be a spark, or are they going to be duds? I'm really interested to see who's going to win in that. And honestly, I couldn't even give you a winner. If I had to give an edge, maybe Auburn, just because Iowa just seems so down in the dumps, but I'm not confident at all. That's going to be a great game just because it's who the heck knows.
I agree. I think those, to go to Ian's point and your point, Joel, like those 7, 10, and 8, 9 matchups, they're coin flips. Like, I mean, they really are. Heck, you could probably even say like some of your 4, 13, and 5, 12 matchups are coin flips at this point as well, because we've seen so many 12 and 13 seeds, go pretty far. But I just want Iowa to lose. I mean, you know how we feel about Iowa being from Nebraska. Like, screw them. So I hope they lose. But all right, Cameron. Oh, go ahead.
To that game really quickly is, if you can't figure out which side that coin's going to flip to, the game is in Birmingham. So, I mean, you're going to get a very pro-Auburn crowd there.
That's a good point.
So, I mean, if you're looking to lean one way or the other, like, I think that could flip the game.
That's a great point. And I did misspeak. I said that TAMU was a 9 seed and they're a 7 seed. But it's that's a great point. Just being in that home crowd, and nobody's really said that Auburn fans are not crazy and are super respectful. So it'll be really interesting to see how the corn-fed, stoic Northern Iowa boys will do going against that.
Agreed. All right, Mr. Walker, you're up.
I'll keep mine short because a few of mine have already been taken. So
that's all good. You can reiterate if you want.
I mean, all the points that I would have made have already been made. So, but some that I did have that were kind of like in the back burner. Really intrigued by the USC Michigan State game, another 7-10 matchup like we talked about. But the guard play on both of those teams are really, really, really good. I think Boogie Ellis was averaging almost 20 a game for USC. So, I mean, if he's on, I mean, look for USC to upset Michigan State. But it's Michigan State and it's March. You can never count those guys out.
There was one year they were a 2 seed. I think this was 2015, and they lost in the first round. So I'm still salty with Michigan State about that, because I had them winning it all that year, and they lost in the first round. So I have to push back on that.
I mean, but they've also made it to the Final Four as an 11 seed and as a 7 seed. So
that's fair. All right, that's fair.
So I mean, you kind of get what you get. But the other one, it's going to be intriguing depending on what happens tonight, because like we talked about, these 11-6 seeds, Arizona State. If Arizona State wins tonight, I like their matchup against TCU. So that, a couple first rounders. I did like Penn State versus A&M. I did like Texas versus A&M, those games as well. But Yeah, I mean, and that Duke Oral Roberts, like you said at the very beginning, how you were going back and forth, back and forth. I mean, you can ask Ian. I was talking to him about last night. I was like, man, Duke is hot. All the talking heads are talking about how far Duke's going to go. Like, that's just, dude, it's the perfect makeup for a crash and burn in the first
Yeah,
two
it
rounds.
really is. I'm getting
But
Lehigh vibes.
that bracket, though, is not, that bracket's just not as strong. And so, I mean, Duke could really come out of that bracket. But those would be my two. The USC Michigan State game, because one of those two teams, I mean, you can see them in the Sweet 16, and then the Arizona State if they win versus TCU matchup.
Agreed. I do like that Arizona State TCU matchup quite a bit. Obviously, if Arizona State, wins their playing against Nevada tonight, I like that a lot. But all right, well, let's move it forward here. So we're gonna talk about upsets next. So upsets to watch. Let's start with Cameron. We'll start with you on this one. So none of yours will be taken this time.
Hey, I respect that. The first one is the Charleston game. I believe they are playing. I'm getting my 12-5s mixed up.
It's San Diego State.
San Diego State. So that was, 31 wins or 32 wins, something like that. I mean, that offense is potent. San Diego State, if they're not, I mean, they're like many college teams are inconsistent. But if their offense doesn't show up, I mean, Charleston that's a bread and butter 12-5 upset right there for me. And then my other upset is a game that I talked about previously. I do have USC getting past Michigan State going on to the next round.
Okay. I like that. All right. Joel, what you got for us?
I'm going to pound that Duke and Oral Roberts.
No, don't tell me you're picking Oral Roberts.
Listen, I'm a Duke guy too. I met my wife at Duke. Coach K wrote us a letter because we did meet there, and he's a great guy. He's the GOAT, certainly one of the GOATs. But they should be very scared of this game. They absolutely should, and I'll tell you why. I think Oral Roberts, they're a veteran team with veteran players. Okay, that 2021 NCAA tournament team returns Max Abmas. 22 points per game, but then you've got Kevin Obenauer and Carlos Jurgens and Kareem Thompson and Deshane Weaver. Like, that's a lot of guys with not only, winning experience, but NCAA tournament winning experience. And that matters at this time of the year. And then even
Agreed.
the new guys that they do have coming in, like Connor Vanover is 7'5". That dude is a monster. So, Duke does have length, and they've got size. They're actually the tallest average, size team in the tournament. So they do have that length, and I thought that showed in the ACC tournament. They finally got together defensively and made that kind of a staple of what they're going to do. But 7'5" is 7'5", and when you complement 7'5" with a guy like Max Abmas that's scoring 22 a game, that's difficult. I mean, they win, and you're talking about you love teams that go in with a lot of momentum. Well, you can't get much better in momentum than 18-0 in conference. Like, you just can't. And winning the conference tournament and just come in, like, there's a lot to be said of going through an entire conference slate against teams that know what you do and have known what you do for years and still win. And the Summit League is no joke. There's some really, really talented. You look at a guy at Grant Nelson at NDSU, and they completely shut that guy down. And so I really like the way that Oral Roberts is playing. I like their game and ability to go inside and out and outside and in. They can mix up the way that they play. You look at their synergy and their points per possessions, like all possessions, they're in the 99% ranking. They score 1.049 points per possession. That's pretty darn good. And it doesn't change, like 96 percentile, 99, 99, 88, 99. And the only 88 is against zone. So Duke, be ready to play some 2-3, and maybe you can find a way. But on the flip side of that, why Duke will win, okay, they're very convincing in the ACC tournament, all right? They found ways to win. They really made it difficult for Virginia to score. Virginia is a very, very well-coached team, obviously, and they've been in that situation. So Duke's done a great job, and they've got some quality wins. They got 3 straight NCAA tournament teams that they've beaten in Pitt, Miami, and Virginia in the NCAA tournament, or in the ACC tournament. So they're peaking at the right time, and the talents obviously are to Duke. Like the talent is there, and if they can figure out how to play together and play well, they are going to win this game. But they should be afraid. And I honestly think the amount that we're talking about this and the amount that pundits are talking about, they're not going to take it lightly. This isn't. You're
Agreed.
saying you got Lehigh vibes, and it's like this isn't the same. Like everybody knows, if you go back and you look at when Oral Roberts won, all the pundits were like, I don't want to play them. Like nobody wants to play Oral Roberts. So Duke's not taking it lightly. They're not going to come in with the Lehigh mentality. They're going to come in knowing that they've got to win this game, but it's not going to be easy because it is vets across the board at every level and in every situation with the NCAA tournament, experience that they do have. So yeah, that's mine. The other one, just a quick snippet, is UConn Iona. I love Iona. They play super
Rick
well.
Pitino.
You got some swagger and intensity with UConn, and Dan Hurley, and then you bring in old school and the Godfather of New York City with Pitino. So that's going to be a super fun one, I think. They play an aggressive style, and if you look at their ranking synergy wise and whatnot, like they do well. And Pitino's trying to get that St. John's job. I think he's got it locked up. But if he wins and he wins that game, they're going to pay him a real big bag. So that's a really good one for you guys to watch.
I agree. I agree wholeheartedly. And everything you said about the Duke and Oral Roberts game, like it's true. It's logical. Do I agree with it still? Absolutely not. Like this is completely emotional. That's just how I am, and I'm sticking with it because we'll talk about it later, but I've got Duke going pretty far. So all right, Ian, what you got for us for upsets?
Yeah, sure. So I guess I want to talk about like my process in picking these upsets, right? So like it's like y'all said, the 11-6 games, those are almost even a coin flip to me because you're getting Power 5 matchups in the round. So I'm trying to dig even deeper into the bracket. So I've got a couple of 13-4 matchups here. My first one that I got is Furman against Virginia. And so like a big reason, this is almost as much as I dislike Virginia as me liking Furman. Like this kind of matchup made in heaven for an upset. So like what I'm looking for in these down bracket upsets is a team that can bend the math in their favor, either like a low possession game, so then the overdog's not going to pull away from them, or they get extra possessions on the offensive boards, or they force turnovers, or they shoot a lot of threes. So what we got here is like Virginia's doing a lot of the work for Furman. They're the slowest team in the country, so they're not going to rack up the possessions to pull away from Furman. And then on the other side, Furman shoots a ton of threes. They shoot them really well. They don't turn the ball over, and they're in the 98th percentile in offensive rating. So, like, what you're looking at here is a team that's going to be bending the math in their favor, so they're getting more possessions, and they're taking more high-value shots in those possessions. And then on top of that, and not just bending the math in their favor, I want the underdog to have a dude that's just not going to be overmatched physically on the court. And Furman's got a dude. They've got 6'7" Jalen Slauson. He's the 2021 SoCon Defensive Player of the Year. He's the 2022 SoCon Player of the Year. And he can do it all. Like, he's sort of a pick and pop four. He can shoot the ball. He's got, like, grab and push ability off the rebounds. So, like, he's kind of a dude they can dump the ball to in the late shot clock. And he can get them a bucket when they need it because, Virginia, they're going to play great defense. And I think they got a dude that can shoot over the defense. So that's something that I'm looking at is Furman over Virginia. That's my first one. And then the second one, it's sort of the same stuff. I've got Kent State over Indiana. That's another 13 versus a 4. And like I think Indiana, they don't do enough to leverage their talent athletically. Like they're just an average offensive rebounding team. They're an average pace. They don't shoot a lot of threes, but they're good at holding on to the ball. They don't turn the ball over. So they're not like this perfect storm here. But Kent State is like if you were building an underdog in a lab, you'd build Kent State. They don't go super high pace, so they're going to stay close. They offensive rebound at a pretty good clip. They shoot a ton of threes. They don't turn the ball over. They get a ton of steals. They're like 100th percentile in steals. So they're getting runouts. They're getting easy buckets. And there's this one stat actually on CBB Analytics. They call it the Hakeem percentage. It's your steal percentage plus your block percentage. And they're like 100th percentile in Hakeem percentage. So they're getting a lot of runouts on that stuff. So that's them bending the math in their favor. And then they've got a dude. They've got Sincere Carey. He was, I believe, the MAC Player of the Year last year. He's first-team All-MAC this year, averaging 17.5 points, 5 assists per game. They've got the MAC Sixth Man of the Year in Jalen Sullinger and the MAC Defensive Player of the Year in Malik Jacobs. So they got dudes that can hang with Indiana, I think, athletically. But going back to Sincere Carry, he takes all the toughest shots for this team. You know, they give it to him at the end of the shot clock. He's taking 30-footers. He's taking sidestep threes. And they go down at a decent enough clip for him. His efficiency is the lowest it's been in his career. He's a fifth-year senior. His three-point percentage is all the way down at 30%. But, like, if you watch the film, and I watched them against Houston when they played Houston, he's taking tough shots at the end of the shot clock all the time. And he gets enough of them to go down to keep them in games. They lost to Houston by 6. They lost to Gonzaga by 7. Like, they're battle-tested for a MAC team. And I think they're going to go out there and, like, I think they're going to take care of Indiana, and they're going to move on.
I wholeheartedly agree with your Kent State take there. That was actually one of mine. In their last 25 games, they won 22, and defensively, they're pretty solid. And your points of them hanging tough with Houston and Gonzaga, I was like, oh, yeah, they seem primed and ready for, you know, a 13 beating a 4 this year. So completely agree there. My other upset, potential upset to watch, though, was that 12-5 matchup with VCU and St. Mary's. I mean, St. Mary's, I really don't see them as a 5. I feel as if they're a little bit too high, but VCU's coming in with a 9-game win streak. And like I said, I've always seen it where teams that go into the tournament with momentum, you know, usually do pretty well. But they're solid defensively as well. I know Shaka Smart is not there from what was that, 2011, 2012, something like that, a long time ago. But I like that team. I think that they are definitely primed and ready as well for an upset versus St. Mary's. But yeah, those are my upsets.
Which is what makes the Iona one intriguing, because if Iona beats UConn, like, are we looking at a Sweet 16 berth for Pitino? Like that, because I agree that other side's not that staunch, no matter who comes out of there on the St. Mary's side. So yeah. Iona might be the Cinderella this year.
I didn't pick them to beat UConn, but that was another close one as well, where I was like, oh.
They better not beat UConn.
Yeah, no, I'm going to talk about why a little bit later. Yeah, but I hope they don't beat UConn.
Messed up.
Yeah, I was like, I hope they don't beat UConn. But all right, here. So third topic we got on the agenda. We got, who do you believe is going to have, you know, the breakout performances of the tournament? You know, that player that we're going to talk about and be like, man, this was his tournament. So who did I start with last time? Joel, right?
No, you start with me. You can start with Ian this time.
Ian, all right. Give us your breakout player.
Yeah, I mean,
and Cameron, I'm sorry, Ian. I'm going to interrupt you. Cameron, I'm going to have to put you on mute because you got a little feedback there in the back. There you go. Go ahead, bud.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think for me, like in this most outstanding player stuff, you're really just looking for the best player on a team that you think can win a championship. Like, that's where it goes 99% of the time. So it's your usual suspects here. I'm just like, I think the most obvious pick is the best player on the number 1 overall seed. That's Brandon Miller. He can shoot the ball. He's over 40% from 3. What I've really liked about his game lately, he's shown the proclivity to drive the ball a lot more. He's getting to his left hand. He's finishing at the rim. He's flashing a little bit of ability as a passer. Like, the way I thought of him in the beginning of the year is like, oh, it's just like they cloned Jabari Smith. He's in college again. But he's not like that anymore. Like, he's driving the ball. He's finding his dudes on the break. He's good at passing the ball. So, I mean, I think that's just kind of the obvious pick is Brandon Miller. But, of course, you got the other dudes like Marcus Sasser. If you think Houston's going to win the championship, which, you know, some of us might talk about that later, not the Houston grad here. And then Zach Edey, who's going to probably be the unanimous player of the year for the regular season. I mean, you just give that dude the ball, you're not stopping him. I think I said that earlier. So those are my 3. I probably took everybody else's, but hopefully I left y'all something to elaborate on when you get going.
No, I mean, you definitely picked mine. Your point in the beginning is spot on, though. It's typically, you know, the best player on the team that you think has the greatest chance of winning the championship. And I mean, this is really Brandon Miller's tournament. I mean, if Alabama makes a deep run, like, I think it's his, like, this is his stage, like, the stage is set for him. So, I mean, that's, you know, it's a pretty big stage, so we'll see if he's able to, you know, respond, especially with all the off the court stuff that has been happening over the past, you know, few weeks as well. But obviously, you know, that was happening, and he had that 40-point game in that overtime win against South Carolina. So clearly the off-court stuff hasn't had too much of an impact on, his game on the court. But that was my pick as well. I think it's Brandon Miller. I'm getting, similar, when, Jim Boeheim and Carmelo Anthony, they had that run way back in 2003. I was like, I could feel it being something similar to that, but obviously if Alabama makes a deep run. But Joel, what you got for us?
Yeah, I mean, Ian did a great job of just kind of the real obvious ones. I've got Sasser and Miller as well, and to your point, like Alabama, hopefully the off the court stuff doesn't become a headline through this whole deal, because going through a tournament, you just don't want anything but basketball to be the conversation. And we won't get into all this stuff with Brandon Miller. Like, you can have your own thoughts and keep them to yourself. But hopefully that doesn't become a problem, and doesn't become, hopefully nobody makes it just like the talking point of every single game, because if they can just keep that off, I think, he's going to be a favorite. You've got Marcus Sasser from Houston, 17 points per game. He's super solid. Houston's going to make a deep run. With that, the deep run, sorry, Drew Timme, you're not going to be the MVP, because I wanted to pick him
just for the heck of it.
He's a great player. I just don't see Gonzaga getting that far where he becomes in serious contention, because obviously he's going to step up in a big moment if it were to come. But with that being said, I've got your safe picks, but I really like the Jamie Jaquez. I apologize if I'm butchering the last name. But the UCLA guy, he's tough, and not only is he good offensively, 17 points per game, 8 rebounds per game. He's had a solid kind of like 10-game stretch scoring the ball outside of the Pac-12 tournament. He didn't do great against Arizona in the championship game, but outside of that, he's been great. But defensively, he's really solid too. And so when you get into a game and you get into a championship game, sometimes those games become a lot less about offense. And they turn into more of a staunch defense thing. And so if he can stand out on both sides of the ball, where every time that, Jamie Nance starts talking, like that dude's name's coming out of his mouth, I think that he's primed to be a lead candidate for that, most valuable player. And then obviously we talked about Edey, and I think that he's got the potential. The hard part about the NCAA tournament is, and with big guys especially, is everybody's just going to, you can't guard them 1v1, so they're going to double them and double them and double them. And then when you do that, and it's not like the Big Ten never did that, so it's not like he's never seen it before. The NCAA tournament, you just don't know. And that's where a lot of people have a hard time relying on those big guys, because it does kind of turn into a guards game a little bit. But if the big dog can eat, he's the player of the year for the entire NCAA for a reason. He has a very, very solid chance of doing that in the tournament as well. But he's got to be ready for some double and even triple teams, where teams start getting creative to try and just cause havoc. Because, Purdue, like, you got, Texas Southern or FDU coming in, who says that they don't throw 3 at you and just see what happens. They've got nothing to lose, and that's kind of going to be a common theme as they go forward. And Memphis has a lot of athletes, so do they get stopped early because Edey can't get the ball, the way that they normally do? So it's an interesting topic for him. I think he's a sleeper pick, but I like the Miller and I like the Jamie Jr. from UCLA for candidates for the MVP.
All right, I like it. Mr. Cameron, you're up, sir.
Let me see. Can y'all hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you.
I'm having some connection issues with my headphones right now.
You're good.
Okay. I like what both of y'all said with y'all's picks. I'll give y'all 2 names that I think, depending on how the teams do, or one of the teams do. Adam Sanogo from UConn. That dude's just a beast, man, on the boards. He can affect the game on the defensive side and on offense. So if UConn makes a deep run, he's gonna be the engine that's gonna make that team go. And then I know Marcus Sasser's the easy one, but I feel like kind of like what you mentioned with Edey, that once you get to the tournament, man, these guys, they're gonna get pinpointed at, hey, this is the top dog on this team. This is who we got to stop, or this is who we cannot let beat us. And in doing so, I think that's going to open the door for Jarris Walker to come in and have a sneaky good tournament. And he could potentially be the guy that walks away with it from my side of it. outside of those two, I mean, I think, like y'all said, Brandon Miller, it's his tournament to lose almost. Even if Alabama doesn't win it, I mean, that dude is he's just too talented. So we'll see. A lot of interesting guys, a lot of talent this year, a lot of evenly spread talent versus in recent years where you kind of had one or two top dogs.
I agree. Absolutely. I feel as if this year, this tournament especially, there is a lot of parity like across the tournament. And I'm just like, there's really not that clear cut, when Kentucky was, top dogs, you're like, all right, Kentucky's pretty much going to take the championship, or Duke for, some years, or North Carolina. It's just like, dang, this field is really good. And, the winner could be 1 through 16. Like, we don't really know. So I think that's pretty awesome. But all right, we got our final topic coming up here. Final Four and championship predictions. So I will go ahead and start here. Like I said in the beginning of the show, I do not feel confident about this whatsoever, but I'm going for it. So from the South region, this is, saw these coming. Alabama. I think Alabama has the easiest shot to get to the Final Four in their bracket, I believe. So I think Alabama makes it. I think they'll be playing from the Eastern region, fifth-seeded Duke. I know it's an emotional pick, but I think Duke's got a solid shot. I actually have Duke. So I have Michigan State winning their matchup against USC, but I don't know if anybody picked Marquette to go far, but I have them losing to Vermont. I have Vermont beating them, and then I have Vermont going all the way to the Elite Eight to play Duke. So, like I said, I don't feel confident about it, but that's what I'm going with. And then I've got, out of the Midwest region, I've got Texas coming out to the Final Four, and I have them playing UConn out of the West region. So Bama, Duke, Texas, UConn, championship game, Duke and Texas. Obviously, my loyalties are divided here now that I'm residing in Texas, but I've got Texas as the national champion. So don't feel confident about it, don't feel good about it, but that's what I'm going with. We're sticking with it. So, Joel, who you got for us?
Yeah, I totally disagree with you on the Marquette. I have Marquette going to the Final Four. I like the way that they ended the year. I think they're gritty. I like Shaka. Coaching matters in this tournament, and gritty
Agreed.
coaching. I think it's one of those deals where in the NCAA tournament, like your system is something, but your players and your culture is another. And when it comes to Shaka Smart, like there's no better person to lead your culture than him. So I'm really excited about his just potential. I also think just kind of like his side of the bracket is a little bit down, and it's not like there's some favorable matchups. Like you talk about the Michigan State, USC. Neither of them are real fantastic. Obviously have potential. I've got zero. Like, do I think that these four are actually going to be in it? Probably not. If I were to think like a little bit out of the box, but my coaching side says it's going to be these four. But you just look at Marquette's road, and it's a solid road to get there with the quality opponent that they may have to come and the upsets that could potentially happen prior to them. You get Purdue that might get bounced early. And so I do like Marquette getting to the Final Four. And then I've got Alabama going on the other side. I think Alabama's got a really, really decent shot of getting there. I don't love, it's like you got Virginia on that spot that meets them in the Sweet 16, and I think they're getting right past Virginia. Virginia they struggled so much with Duke. They couldn't guard Duke when they went big. They couldn't guard Duke when they went small. I don't think Virginia's, that elite this year like they normally are. And then, you've got Creighton and Baylor and Arizona on the other side, and we'll see. But I have Alabama with the star-studded talent that they have with Brandon Miller and his potential. I think they're going to be okay getting there. And then I've got Texas and UCLA on the other side. I like Texas going through. I think they're talented. I think they're playing really well. I think they did a fantastic job of just totally tuning out all of the garbage that happened at the beginning of the year. And I think that, the interim's done a fantastic job of leading those dudes. And, Chris Beard's obviously moved on, but like, so have those guys. And I think that they see their team as their team and not Chris Beard's team. So that's good. They've got an identity. I have them meeting Houston in there. And I think when you get to that matchup, it's going to be the fact that Texas has gone through a gauntlet of the Big 12. And I mean, from top to bottom, the Big 12 is so stinking good. And Houston, it's no fault of their own, and obviously they're going to be making changes here soon. But they finally play Memphis in their conference championship game and they lose. And Memphis is good. Don't get me wrong there either, but they haven't gone against that gauntlet, and the NCAA tournament is just a gauntlet. So who have you gone against, and how star-studded is your cast and just that resume leading up? So that's why I've got Texas kind of getting the edge over Houston in that late, and then I've got UCLA on the other side. I think Kansas has a brutal road to get to the Final Four. I think that West is just tough. Like, you win your first game and you meet Arkansas or Illinois. That's not fun. And then it's like you meet a VCU, UConn, or Iona, I don't know a whole lot about St. Mary's. I don't have a lot of confidence, but you're probably meeting a UConn or a Iona, whoever wins that matchup. But even if it's VCU, like, they're freaking good. So just that's not easy. And then you go to the other side, it's like TCU's in there, which I don't have a lot of faith in TCU, especially when they lose that big guy. You just don't know. They're kind of shaky on that. But you've got Gonzaga, Northwestern, who don't count Northwestern out. They were one game away from being the 2 seed in the Big Ten tournament. They were one weekend away from being right there in the Big Ten. So that's a really good Northwestern team. And then you got UCLA. Like, that is a tough, star-studded side of the bracket. I don't think Kansas makes it out of there because they've got to go against so much Power 5 and so much elite. Just even different types of team. Arkansas is different than Illinois, and both of those are different than UConn, and Iona is completely different than all of them. So no matter who comes out of there, like, they're going to be facing a lot of different types of teams. And then you get Northwestern, who slows that thing down. They're so good defensively. Like, they don't score the ball a lot, but they don't let you score it either. And then UCLA is obviously UCLA, and I like their coach in the way that he just doesn't give a rip about anybody or anything. He thinks that they're going to win it all, and he's vocal about it, and I love that. So that's going to be the Final Four, and then I do have Alabama winning it. I don't love it. Being down here in the South, you got to sit there and give it to them. But I just think Brandon Miller and the cast that they have and the resume that they've brought, I think it's good enough to win. I think that the road to get there is a little bit easier, so you come in with a little bit less of weary legs. And I just, it's in Houston, so you've got a close travel there. It's not super far away. And then you've got that line. It's like 100% of the past whatever years it's been on that side of the, that Mason-Dixon line almost. And so I think Alabama comes out and wins.
I like it, but I don't love it. I know they're their overall favorite, but it's like, when was the last consensus number one in the tournament to win? I can't remember. I want to say it wasn't that year that Kentucky went 35-0 or whatever, because they ended up losing to, I think, Wisconsin that year. But yeah. Yeah.
It was the last time that happened was Louisville, actually. And so 2004 it was Florida. 2007 Florida, 2012 Kentucky,
I remember that.
2013 Louisville won. And so
Louisville one got vacated.
It's
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
We don't talk about that one anymore.
Who is the coach? Who is the coach there again?
I think it might have been Rick Pitino. That's funny. All right, well.
So I think he's.
Yeah. All right. I think Ian, or no, did Ian, you already go? No, it's me and Joel went. So Ian, you go here. Yeah.
All right. So we've all talked about Alabama. I've got them in the Final Four. I got Duke in the Final Four. What I like about Duke is, they've shown that they can win in a number of different ways, right? And you need to do that in March. They can play big. They've got Filipowski. They've got Lively. They've got big dudes. Their guards can take over a game. They can win with defense. They can win with offense. And I think a way that you saw that, I know North Carolina's not good this year, but that North Carolina game at the end of the season, UNC was fighting for their tournament lives. They needed that game, and they're trying every lineup combination that they can, and Duke's got a counter for it. And that game was close, but it never really felt close. It felt like Duke was in control of that game. And they're coming in hot, like we've talked about. So, I like Duke as a basketball team. I don't like Duke personally, but, I'm trying to take personal bias aside. And I think they're going to make the Final Four.
I'm not.
In that West region, I think we might have all different teams coming out of the West, because it's like we said, Kansas has a terrible road. So I've got Gonzaga coming out of the West, actually. I don't know if this is just a legacy pick in my brain, but they've got a high-flying offense. let's not forget they beat Alabama, the consensus number 1, by 10 points in Alabama. They put 100 on them boys. Like, this is the same team. Drew Timme can take over a game. Their guards can shoot. So I really do like Gonzaga. And then out of that Midwest bracket, sort of a homer take here, I've got Houston. I love this Houston team. Like, and we Cam touched on Jarris Walker as potential player of the tournament, and I love that, right? Like, if people go to take away Marcus Sasser, they've got this easy counter. Like, they send a double at Sasser, you get a short roll with Jarris Walker. He's in the middle of the floor going 4-on-3. He can get to the basket. He can kick out to our shooters like Tremont Marks. He's the perfect short roll guy in college basketball. He can be like college basketball's version of Draymond Green on offense, but he can actually shoot a little bit. So I think that's a really cool pick. I like that, Cam. In my championship game, I've got Houston against Alabama. We got the rematch there. I think these are the two best teams. They've been the two best teams all season. And I got Houston pulling it out in NRG Stadium, 5 miles from campus. Cameron and I in the crowd as they cut down the nets. So
I had a feeling that was coming.
So that's what we got.
All right. I like it. A little bit of logic, a little bit of emotion. That's fine. I'm fine with that.
And you're gonna make me eat my words about Drew Timme not getting the MVP. If he makes it that far, that clip of me saying sorry, Drew Timme, is gonna go somewhere, and somebody's gonna use it against me. But
oh yeah,
I'll make sure
I post it on all platforms.
I appreciate that. Thanks for keeping that low key. Thanks, Murph.
All right, Cameron, you're the last one, right?
Yes, sir.
All right, man. What you got? Final four.
Final four. I think we're all on board with Bama.
That just means all of our brackets are going to get busted.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's very true. I mean, I wouldn't mind if Bama lost. Like, let that bracket bust. But I like UConn as well. That was my kind of upset, pick throughout the that side of the bracket. And then I like Marquette. I've looked at the history of it, and there's always it seems like there's this pattern of 2 1 seeds, a 2 seed, and then a random. You just have a random team make it,
like a 10 seed.
Yeah. So I mean, UConn's my random team at that 4. I think they're too talented offensively. Marquette, they play with a lot of passion and energy. And then, Joel, you talked about Texas and the gauntlet they went through. The thing about U of H is they've been here and done it before, and these guys have gone through this tournament. They know what it takes. And so you have that gauntlet of the Big 12, meeting tournament experience. And you talked about with Oral Roberts how important tournament experience is. This U of H top to bottom has that. And so, I mean, and just seeing the growth with, some of our freshmen this year being forced to play against Memphis. I mean, Memphis did beat U of H in that championship game, but they had to shoot lights out. U of H shot very poorly. U of H did not have their best player, and U of H was in foul trouble all game from top to bottom with Chaney, Roberts, and I think both of our freshman guards. So, I mean, I personally, just from a logic and from a basketball perspective, love the way this U of H team is built. Love how if their offense gets stagnant, they don't give up and they attack it on the defensive end, and they let their defense turn into offense. And then I have UH and Bama in that championship game, and I have UH cutting it down, man.
I'm shocked. I'm so shocked.
I mean, there is some want to it, but there's also, like, looking at the history, like last year when UH lost to Bama in Tuscaloosa. I mean, that was a close game that should have been the other way with that goaltend, but that's neither here or there. And then this year, I mean, if they didn't just fall apart and just try to play keep away instead of attacking the basket, I mean, they let a 17-point lead disintegrate and lost. So I mean, U of H has what it takes to win, and I think third time's a charm. I think Kelvin Sampson's going to have these boys ready, and it's going to be a dogfight, and I think they're going to come out on top.
I think that would be pretty cool to see, obviously, if Houston was able to pull it out in Houston. I mean, I can't remember the last time we saw, a hometown team, win the championship in the NCAA tournament. I don't know if that's ever happened, actually.
We've never seen it. Like, we've seen, I think the closest we got was I think Michigan
Butler.
State might have won it. But it wasn't like in Butler.
Oh, because that was in Indianapolis.
Like,
Yeah, that's right.
Was it?
That was the Gordon Hayward bank shot
Okay,
from half court.
The Gordon Hayward shot. Oh my God, I was so nervous.
Butler's the only one. But I also think Michigan State won one when it was in Detroit, if I'm not mistaken.
Was that 90s?
But
That might have been a long time ago.
No, I think it was recent.
Oh,
but,
really?
But that Michigan State's not located in Detroit, so. But
Yeah.
it's still, home state advantage.
Yeah. I think that would be pretty cool, though. All right. So basically what I've seen, though, is that, yeah, if Bama loses, we're all screwed, right? And that's kind of seen that. Joel, obviously I have Marquette losing in the first game to Vermont. Like, that's my Cinderella. They're going to the Elite Eight, so we obviously, strongly disagree there. Duke and UConn, I know two of y'all, I think, Cameron, you have UConn in the Final Four. Ian, you have Duke in there. So, we've got some similarities, but we've also got some differences. So it's the tournament, right? That's what we're all here for.
Expand on your Vermont pick. I'm interested to know why Vermont is going to knock out.
I didn't write anything down.
Yeah,
I really didn't. I didn't write anything down. So like when I was going through my picks, going through the CBS and whatnot, looking at all the different stats and whatnot, I'm like, yeah, Vermont. So that really is the gist of it. It's probably gonna be terrible. But I don't have them in the Final Four. So
Just, if you're going to do the Drew Timmy to me, then you've got to clip yourself out.
I plan at the end of the year to put all my terrible takes together and put them all in one video. So I am all for making fun of myself.
Perfect.
But all right, well, I think that's it. That's all we have for today's show, gentlemen. I appreciate all of y'all being on a special edition of Another Turnover. I definitely want to make this an annual thing. I know I'm not, super huge into college sports, but I appreciate all of your willingness. If we can just go through, just give me your socials, where we can find you. Ian, where can we find you on socials?
Yeah, so I'm actually only on Twitter. I've been trying to get rid of my other socials, so I'm at Ian_Sadler 15. So that's where I'm at. You can find me there. I started doing some writing on the Astros for Astros Future. You can find them on Twitter at Astros Future, and look out for some of my stuff there.
Perfect. All right, Cameron, where can we find you?
Instagram is going to be CamWalker11, and on Twitter, Cameron_W11.
All right, Coach Wallace, where can we find you?
You can get me at Coach Wallace 30. So Coach WALLACE 30. And you'll get all my hot takes about college athletics and some Laterno basketball.
No more going J-Wall. Fun fact, Joel in high school was J-Wall, like John Wall back in the day, and we all loved it. So
yeah, once you get into the professional realm of coaching, you got to go away from the going J-Wall and you got to get a little more professional with the Coach Wallace. So had to do it, but deep down, I'm always going to be going J-Wall.
I know. I love it. All right, y'all. Well, like I said, I appreciate y'all being on the show. Thank you, everyone, for listening, watching. If you could do all the good things, like, share, subscribe, leave comments, I would greatly appreciate it. But watch some tournament games this weekend. They should be entertaining. They should be fun. And I guess we'll see you next week. Take care.
Go Cougs!
Yes, sir. Thank you.
I'm making his dog, like I'm in the big leagues. Told him that I gotta go, dog. I'm riding the road, y'all. I think that I'm back in my bag now. So I need that go, y'all. Got hits when he throwing the fast.